Keep talking. Might be trying to piece these notes together real quick. It is quiet time. All right, folks. I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight. My name is Kasim Smith, and I will be introducing the panelists and your moderator for the evening. Go ahead and start off by talking a little bit about the Sierra Sisters, which is where all the proceeds from the $5 that everyone paid to come in are going to go. They're a nonprofit here in the Puget Sound that basically supports and kind of guides people living with cancer and fighting cancer currently through the process. And they meet locally. There's a table right over there on the side that you can pick up one of these brochures and make a tax-deductible donation. Tax-deductible. You can give them some money. Deductible donation. Thank you. Yeah, so go over there and check that out. And it's definitely for a good cause. I'm sure you guys all know that because you're here. Kicking things off, I'd like to bring out, well, because we're talking about the Sierra Sisters, Bridget Hempstead, who is the founder of the organization, and she'll be one of our panelists this evening. Here she comes. Thank you for a round of applause. All right, next I'm going to go ahead and introduce our moderator, Joey Thomas, who is a former NFL superstar, having played for he played defensive back for Green Bay, Miami Dolphins, and the Oakland Raiders. Here he comes right now, Joey Thomas. The gentleman is also writing a book at the moment. I don't know if he wants me to plug it right now, but I will. It's called I May Not Know Much, But I Know Women. So Joey Thomas is up here on the panel moderating. I think he's a good person to have here for this. Okay, next up, we're going to bring out, let's see, Wendy Olson. Oh, sorry, okay, never mind. Wendy Olson is a licensed marriage and family therapist, and she specializes in sex therapy. Excellent person to have up here tonight. And she is absolutely amazing and coming down the stairs right now before I finish. I was organizing these notes earlier. Mike Primavera, that was my joke. Mike is a comedian. So, comedian and funny man Mike Primavera from the San Francisco Bay Area. Didn't want me to say much about him because he wants to show you who he is when he gets here. So, there he goes. Look at that. That's it. All right. Do you want me to There's a man at the top of the stairs there who says he's got something to do with all this. Marcus Harrison Green wrote a book, A Year Without April. I don't know what it's about, but love, heartbreak, men going crazy. Fantastic guy, great author. I think he's my friend. I hope he's my friend. Marcus Harrison Green. And now that I've struggled through this, I'm going to go sit in the shadows. Thank you, guys.
we're adjusting Joey's mic real quick. Sorry.
Hello? Hello? Oh, okay. I guess the mic didn't need no adjustment. But at this point in time, we'd like to say thank you for everybody coming out. We really do appreciate it. You know, this is for a good cause. But I just want to ask the audience, I have a question for the audience. Who's ever been in love? By a show of hands. Come on now, raise your hand. Now, I'm not talking about Mr. and Mrs. right now. I'm talking about that intoxicating feeling you get when you meet somebody and you're just googly-eyed, your heart's fluttering, and you can't think about nobody else but your partner. All right? It's good to know I'm not the only person that's had that feeling. I've been in love and I'm still in love, so it's good to know. But that's what, thank you very much. My love is sitting right there. Hi, love. So, panel, let's talk about love. That seems to be the question that everybody, wants to know. Falling in love, how do you sustain your love, and all the directions and things that love can take you. Love is the topic at hand. Bridget.
Love is a hell of a drug.
Oh, yes, it is.
One thing about love is it could either spiral you into the best or it could bottom you out to the worst.
Preach on it.
So hopefully, if we have responsible people in the audience, they've never done this one, where they fell in love and then all of a sudden the other person didn't love you like that. And then what happens? The crash and fall.
Right.
What's the biggest problem is the power in the vagina and the power in the penis.
Okay, this is interesting.
And that concludes our evening.
It's got weird quick.
Y'all know it's powerful.
Yeah, you ain't
Do
never
you want
lied.
anybody to have your stuff? I don't think so.
Right.
And then when you think somebody else got your stuff, what you ready to do?
Act
Go
up.
fatal.
Yeah.
Attraction.
Okay.
Y'all saw the movie.
Show enough. Wendy.
Oh, I've never been in love. I think I'm the only one here who didn't raise their hand. I have a few children, but that doesn't mean anything. No, when people for thousands and thousands of years have reported very similar experiences, falling in love, and you go from not noticing anyone to suddenly obsessing over one person, and everything they do is so cute. It's, of course, later in life, it's the thing you want to stab them over. But it's so cute, and you obsessively think about them, and everything about them smells good and looks good and tastes good, and you can't stop thinking about this person. I've read, I don't know. But it's so all-consuming, and it's so normal for human beings to have that experience, but when you're having that experience, it's like no other. No, I've never felt like this before. I have a friend who's newly in love who's talking about, I've never had this experience. I said, you're 872 years old. You've had this experience 27 times. But yeah, it's just that rush when you first fall in love. And obsessive. It's something you should be diagnosed over. If you sustain this for too long, you will be, and you will be medicated heavily.
Right, it's kind of what Wendy was saying. I mean, love is sort of, I forget that quote, but it says, love is a constant, you need constant, it's like a constant anesthesia or something. And it's a very subjective thing. Love can make you, think that, what I think of somebody as, being overweight and overworked and balding, some people call that their love of their life and their husband. And it's something that makes us all feel that this one person, for whatever reason, stands out from everyone else. And I know for me, in writing the book that I did called A Year Without April and interviewing 200 males and females who had all been heartbroken and went through love before, I kind of got that feeling from everybody that it's one of those things that is so ubiquitous, but at the same time, it's so subjective. We've all been there, but at the same time, it's kind of like, damn, I want to go again, when you are broken up. I remember talking to this gentleman, and he was saying that, he knows that every single time he's in love with somebody that it's doomed to fail. And so I was like, well, that's probably not the best approach you should come into something. But he said that it feels so damn good, and that's why he keeps on doing it. It's like a loveaholic, I believe he called himself. And I have to admit, it is damn good, even for somebody who's as cynical about it as myself. So.
All right.
All right. Well, speaking of cynical, it's my job as a comedian to be cynical, so I'm a little bit jaded on love as far as just a matter of, like you said, it's more of like a mental illness that makes you do really stupid shit all the time. And I don't know, like people seem to think it's really great, and I also have never been in love, but man, it just seems like a real fucking bummer as far as the decisions you make. And I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying that love isn't real, because I just think that you need to be preconditioned for love. Like you need to believe that is a possibility for yourself. And my job, being so cynical all the time, is constantly asking questions. And I don't know, it's more of like faith, like believing in religion. Like you put all of your trust in somebody, you don't ask questions anymore. And that's kind of like what love is for me. And like, I love comedy. I love the response I get from people like you guys laughing at me saying stupid shit up here all the time. That's the feeling I get that I think would be love, but is not the same.
All right. Now, let's talk about something. Since we all agree, that we all have been in love in some shape, form, or fashion. Now, let's talk about how when you meet somebody and really they're meeting your representative, you're not being truthful who you are or how you do things. I mean, let's just be honest. You meet somebody and you're like, oh, wow, amazing, breathtaking, takes your breath away. So you kind of do things maybe that you normally wouldn't do if you had been in a relationship for 8 months or a year. You're still kind of fronting a little bit about, the things you like. You may not be into sports, but when he turns on that ball game, you're saying, oh yeah, babe, is the Cubs playing? Oh yeah, that's my favorite team. And you don't even like baseball. So let's just touch on that where, sometimes when you meet somebody and a relationship is new to you, you want it to work, so you kind of front a little bit on who you are and the things maybe that you really enjoy.
You put on that pretty love mask? Is
That
what you're
love
talking about?
mask.
That love mask. That one where you say, oh, when they see me, I look beautiful every day. Teeth is brushed, and you just had a swish of Listerine before you saw them. They're like, wow, she always smells like flowers. And that's not the real person, or they really have a personality glitch that you don't know about, and then later on you find out, well, wait, they did this, and then they showing you the real them, and then later on it's like, what happened? And then you're in love with them, and it's like, wait a minute, let me put this on hold. You talking about that one?
I'm talking about that one.
You talking about that one?
I'm definitely talking about that one. Wendy?
Well, I'm just going to theorize since I've never been in love. But I imagine that sometimes people bathe more regularly when they're in love. And maybe they shave everything more regularly when they're newly in love. And then, they get comfortable. But before the comfort zone hits, there's always testing the waters, before you can slide right into shaving every other week. You do a little bit of testing. You see if they're still shaving everything all the time and bathing regularly all the time. And I like that. I like that stage. I like that because comfort's coming, but you're still putting up a really good front. You don't argue with your mother ever. You don't argue with anyone ever. You're pleasant to everyone all the time. And everything they do is still sweet. Your jaw might be clenched a little bit, but it's still pretty sweet.
Right.
It's just right before the blinders come off.
The fall.
I hear.
Marcus?
No, but I think, as when he was saying, when the blinders do finally come off, I think that's when you know what you have. That's when you know if this is the person that's, for me, or at least I want to spend a modicum of time with. It comes, it goes from that honeymoon phase of love to that very comfortable phase of love. Like, I know example for me is, and I'll embarrass my mother and father since they're back there, is when I was growing up as a young child, and, I'm coming in to brush my teeth and wash my face in the morning, and I see my dad there, and he's, taking a bow, moving on the toilet, and he is straight peeling paint on the and my mother is right in there with him. Yeah, and doing great, like and brushing.
You have
her,
my
her
number,
teeth.
right?
Now brushing her teeth and acting like it is nothing wrong, and just seeing that as a kid, and you're like, wow, this is.
That must be love.
That must be love, really.
That's love.
I love you, Mom and Dad.
And how long have your parents been married?
Was it 32 years now? 33? 34? 35? It's been a while.
All right. Mike?
Well, like you were saying, the girl I've been dating, when I first started dating her, I'm, as you can tell from my top half, a very hairy guy. And when we first started dating, I was like manscaping. You got to do that when you're dating, because most
You're a
girls
good
aren't
man.
having that. But like we've been dating for 2 years, so now I've kind of not really done that so much anymore, and she's still with me. So like when we first started dating, like it kind of trimmed like every area into its own hair continent, so it's separate from everyone.
God,
But after 2 years, though, it's become like more of a hair Pangea. Like it's all connected. So, but she doesn't say anything. So I guess that's saying something for love.
she's got a hairball in her throat.
Right. Okay.
That's how you keep them quiet.
Now let's talk about this aspect. I mean, I'm not quite sure if anybody in the crowd, has been in this situation. But have you ever met somebody who, you thought, they're nice, not necessarily my type, but, he's a good listener. Or, she listens to me. She listens to my problems. Well, 6 months later, you're dating, Now, this may not be, what you would usually, see yourself with, but somehow through good conversation and a good ear, you find yourself in a relationship with this person, kind of like that slow burn of love. You didn't see it coming because you thought, you're just going to be friends in the friend zone. And before you know it, 6 months, you're moving in. Name on the cable bill. Let's talk about it. I know.
The name on the cable bill. Boy. I had a gentleman caller, we'll just say. And he was, I want to give you the stars, the moon, the sun. You're my queen. And, let me come and take care of you and, and let me move in. I'm like, no, I got a feeling there's something going on here. So I think after 20 years of being married and that relationship didn't work, and then I tried another one for 4 years, and so that didn't work. I figured, you know what, I'm not going to do the 6 months thing, and I'm not going to do the let you come in and move in. So my standards are just very, very different now, because I know that there are those, for the lack of a better word, the predators that are looking for on both ends. You got the male predators that's looking for the woman. You got the woman predator that's looking for the man, to take care of him. And, so those are just problems that I think you can open a Pandora's box to. You might not want to do that.
Now, you said something that's very interesting to me. You said standards. So I just want to touch on that. Because sometimes, I'm not picking on women, but I'm just saying, sometimes it seems as if women's standards are really, really high, or they're really, really, really low.
Yeah.
So, Wendy, this is kind of for you,
yay.
kind of being a therapist and seeing, I would assume just numerous of situations and things. Where's the balance at? If your standards are too high or unrealistic to what a single guy, which is not myself, but a single guy may say, well, who's going to meet that standard? No one's going to meet that standard but you. And then, from the woman who really doesn't have any standards, she's at the point where she's saying, I just want a man. Just give me a man. So elaborate on that a little bit.
Well, I've read about this a lot. Well, I think, and I know a lot of people that I feel like have these really, really unrealistic expectations for what a relationship should be. And sometimes even on the low end, that's a kind of an unrealistic expectation, like, I'm going to be happy no matter how he treats me. No, guess what? You're not. So your standards can be so low and you're unhappy, or you're so high, and everybody's probably had that friend who's like, oh, this person has to be, he or she has to be this and this and this and this and this. And you're like, yeah, wondering why you're alone on Saturday night, are you? It's the standard, they isolate themselves by setting something so unrealistic that no one can, who's gonna meet that? Or you have friends maybe they have someone in their life, but they keep talking about how that person for them doesn't meet that standard. They also have, quote unquote, high standards. So, I mean, those are the sort of loneliest places to be and the most unhappy places to be. I hate to say this, but it's like, we gotta compromise. I mean, if you set it so high, it's a way really to isolate yourself and to keep people away. And if you set it so low, it's really a reflection of you not caring very much about you.
Right.
You just want, your identity is about having somebody there, anybody.
Right.
People who don't shave anymore. I mean, low
Tough
can the bar
crowd.
go.
Tough crowd.
So
Okay.
both are directly connected to not being satisfied, not feeling happy.
All right.
No, but I mean, at the same time, I think it's about being realistic. I think, somebody told me once, everybody's looking for a custom fit, and it's an off-the-rack world. I mean, there's nobody who is 100% going to be, who you want them to be. Exactly. It's ultimately love to me it's not, understand. It's not, it's easy to accept somebody if they're, what you want them to be, but it's harder to accept somebody as they are, and you're still crazy about them. So
Preach. Okay. That man must be a writer. So well said. So the crazy thing and the tricky thing about love, one can't truly experience love until you love yourself. Because how can you truly give yourself to someone if you don't know how to give yourself love, self-respect, self-worth? So those things have to come from within. That's why they all start with self. But somehow we search for those things in others. And once you get back to loving yourself and finding your own worth, you'll realize love has been waiting for you all along. But we've talked so much about love, and it's just feeling kind of lovely in the room, just kind of a love fest. What I want to know is what happens when love starts to wear off, and he don't look as cute as he did before. She stopped shaving. Come on now, let's talk about it. And all the little things that they used to do that was just so cute. It was like, oh, now I know the hell out of you. He's leaving his drawers on the floor. You're just annoyed. How do you handle that situation when you come down from cloud 9 to a thing that we call reality?
And the reality being that I don't think this relationship is going to work. Is that the reality?
Woo!
And then the other person is totally in love, and you're not in love anymore, and you're saying, this is not a good fit for me. But then the other person wants to convince you, yes, this is a good fit for me.
Don't leave. No.
Please. I heard a story of a woman who the man was leaving. They were living together, and he says, you know what, you can have everything. I don't want anything. And they were just living together. They weren't married or anything. And so she, he's leaving, and she is holding on to his ankles, and he's trying to run out the door, and she's saying, no, it's no. And so then she ended up turning to being his fatal attraction. And so and it can happen vice versa, because the individuals don't know how to say, you know what, you may not love me anymore, and I'll just have to accept that fate and move on and continue to grow without you. It's really difficult. And it's across the United States of America. We just had a shooting not too long ago in the central area where two students, they went to the school that I teach at, and they were having a domestic situation, and he shot her, and the police shot him. And so, you know, this thing called love is really not love. It's an infatuation. It's an obsession. You know, they probably both should have had some kind of medication. But, you know, who is there to diagnose when that love has gone wrong? I think there's no manual that says, okay, here's a love manual. Let me give you a responsibility as an individual, as a human being, when it comes down to having a relationship with another person. We have book writers who write wonderful writings about these things, but the reality is we end up getting in relationships without understanding what the responsibility as a person falling in love. We don't have that manual.
Right. Now, that seems to be such a tough thing for me, or just in general, is because everything's a delicate balance, you know, because when you come off that cloud and on the way down, you know, you're trying to figure out, is this worth holding on to? You know, do I go? Do I just jet? Do I not just come home one day and pack my stuff when she's at work? Or do I stay here and try to work it out now that we're through the honeymoon phase? So that's always a tough decision to figure out, you know, is it time to let it go, or is it time to fight for it?
I mean, I think it depends. And I remember interviewing this gentleman. He was 65 years old for my book. And I'm talking to him, and he's saying that, you know, there's this great love of his life who he just, you know, thought was so amazing. And I was like, oh, man, you know, is she coming, you know, back to you soon enough? Or he's like, oh, man, well, you know, I haven't actually seen her in about 45 years. And, you know, so I'm doing the math. And I'm like, okay, that'd be 20. He's like, yeah, she just had a grandkid, I guess. That's what I heard. But I'm still holding on for it. And and you're like, you know, man, I mean, I really think it is time for you to let go. And I think some people, for some reason, you know, I've certainly been guilty of this in my past, that you think that love is more of a science than an art, which it is, in the fact that there's something that you can do to make somebody want to be with you or stay with you. Or, you know, I've been there before where one of my best friends, Terry, can attest when you're, you know, when you text somebody 1,099 times and thinking that for whatever reason the 1,098th time was, you know, didn't quite do it. And you know, I remember interviewing a gentleman, and he said that it's weird about love when two people, you know, are deeply in love with each other. You know, that they call that true love. When only one person is in love with each other, they call you a delusional, schizophrenic, crazy. I mean, I couldn't mess with his logic. It seemed okay, but I mean, I think in this crazy thing called love, it's from what I've learned, if somebody does not want to be with you, you can only fight so much. And you know, even though Hollywood tries to portray that you can never go far enough, you can never do enough, you can never be there enough. You can never do enough until they put a restraining order on you. and you know.
911.
Well, when you first started talking about this particular segment, I was thinking about, you know, how you go from being all gooey-eyed, doughy-eyed, and maybe gooey-eyed if you've got an infection, I don't know, to more of the reality-based. And when do you make that decision? You know, is this things are settling down, and do you both feel like they're settling down but they're still okay? Or do you feel like, as you were saying, not so much okay, when is he going? I was just thinking about, you know, you get to that stage where you're driving around in the car, and maybe, you know, if you're a guy, you feel like, you know, you got a little something in your nose, you do a polite little, the beginning. Later on, when the doughy-eyed part wears off, and he's up to his second knuckle in his nostril, and she's looking at him like, dude, it's a sedan, not a cloaking device. You know, it's that stage. You know, that's normal too. I mean, getting to a place where, you know, you're allowed to be irritated, but overall, at the core of it, it's still somebody that you trust, that you feel like has your back, that you want to spend time with, that when something happens, you want to tell them. Then you know, we're going good. I still want to smack him when he does that, but you know, if you get to that place, as you were saying, where maybe you're somebody seems to be obsessing over you, and you're not just feeling the same way, like, no, I'm really over it. I'm really over you calling me 17 times a day. And they're jacking it up to 34, 36.
Why are you looking at me?
I don't know. You know, just 10 should be enough.
Watching you from the corner.
Yeah.
You don't know it.
Mm-hmm. You know, you're on a long walk, you think for one, but it's really two.
Right, and I mean, what he was saying is, it's kind of like you are at being the heartbroken of the person who has, you know, been dismissed from the relationship. You're kind of over there. In some ways, when you break up with somebody, it's you view it sort of as a referendum on yourself, that, you know, I'm not good enough, or I'm not, you know, something is wrong with me, as opposed to, I mean, it might just be something wrong with the person. Like somebody told me once, in the relationships are the only thing you can get all A's in and still fail.
Listen to him.
Preach.
Lots of wisdom
I wish I
over
would
here.
have taken notes.
No, because because unfortunately, it doesn't act that way. I mean, there's some people who, a friend of mine who he just recently went through a divorce, and he was saying that, you know, he envisioned, you know, the rest of his life with this person. They had been married for 30 years, and she just woke up one day and said, you know, I don't want to be with you, and I'm sorry. I think you're a great person, but I just don't want to be with you. And I mean, completely shattered his world. And it's, gosh, I'm about to be crying because he was crying the other day on my shoulder. But no, it's just one of those things that it really does suck. And as the heartbroken, you are reaching out there for answers, and you just wish that they could say something that would be satisfactory to you. And to me, as being somebody who's had his heart broken many times, I think being honest with the person about it. Like, we have all these cliches that people say, like, oh, it's not you, it's actually me. Or, sorry, it's not, what do they say? It's not,
It's not you.
I've heard it so many damn times, you think I know. Right. Right, it's not you, it's me. And if they'd be honest, no, it is you. Your breath stink, your feet smell. It is you. Otherwise, if it wasn't you, I'd still be with you. Right. And I think I'd rather, as somebody who's heartbroken, would rather have that than, I'd rather have it right there, you know, honest, on his face, as opposed to a slow burn of, well, I can change, I can do this. Like, no, it's just let it go, you know?
It's just not going to work. It's just not going to work. I hear you. Now, I've seen situations now where I have a cousin, won't say no names. Now, beautiful young woman, beautiful, very attractive. You know, a lot of guys talk to her and whatnot. She has no problem with getting a date. But because of her own insecurities and some of the things that she feels pertaining to herself, she gets, you know, nice guys, you know, who treat her well, and then a year or two down the line, she finds a reason, or excuse is how I see it, not to be with that person. Now, is it every relationship she's in, or is it her? Because she's the only common denominator. So at some point in time, you know, regardless if you're the one being broken up with or you're the one doing all the breaking up, you have to self-assess. And I think as people, that's one of the hardest things to do, is to look yourself in the mirror and say, where am I flawed? You know, where can I improve myself as a person? How can I better myself? I mean, that's hard to do when you live in a world that's about vanity, what you look like, how you dress, how you present yourself. But when you take all the clothes off, all the jewelry and all the fashion, looking at the core of a woman and the core of a man, and sometimes it's a scary thing. You know, I know I've been petrified, like, wow, this is me? I'm ugly. And I love me some me now. But to get down to the core of my ways, of my actions, of how I was operating as an individual, it was ugly. So to regardless of what end of the stick that you fall on, you know, the one that's been heartbroken or the one who's been breaking the hearts, take time to assess yourself, you know, analyze, you know, because it can't always be everybody else. You know, it can't be every woman I meet, she's just not good enough. You know, she wears stilettos. Her feet are too small. Really? Really? Her feet? You know, so, and it's always not the guy. It's always not him. So it's checks and balances. So, that's one of the things that we have to do from time to time is, self-check, self-assess. I mean, not just in love, but in life. So this is one of the things that I've noticed. Now, honesty, something that you preached on, about being honest. Well, how do you be honest with the individual when you said, I think we should go in a different direction, Mike. And Mike says, okay. But yet he calls you and texts you the next day. What do? They're not getting it. So if I tell you that I want to be in a relationship and you won't take no for an answer, what is the next step?
Restraining order.
I'm sorry I call and text you so much. I'll take that.
All right. So, that's one of the things. What do you do when you communicate, to that other person and they just won't take no for an answer? Restraining order? Great advice. But how do you handle that, Bridget?
One thing about, I talked with individuals who actually did that. They did the restraining order, and they end up using the court system as a way to punish another individual. You'd be surprised at some of the things that happen, when you talk about restraining orders, and it's like, do I really want a restraining order, or can I really sever the relationship and at least, be on a common ground where we could say, hey, if it's not a violent relationship, those things, they can happen. But that, again, brings in the fact that relationships and individuals in relationships are not mature. I don't care if you're 99 years old and you cannot say, you know what, this is not going to work for me. You're not mature enough to handle the fact that, oh, I really need to move on from this relationship because my star, the sun and the moon rises up every time, and when they say yes, I say how high. That's not a reality either, because you don't love yourself enough to move on or allow that person to move on. And if it is for you, if that relationship is for you, it'll come back. But I think that the story is we forget that if that person is really for me, it'll come back, or that person will come back. So we're too busy watching too much CSI and, all these other TV programs that come on, and, we hear, things on the radio. Oh, well, you know what? I could just make them love me. If I just treat them really well, they're going to love me no matter what. But that's not reality.
Right. So would you have any advice for someone who may be here today on ways of letting go? When you find yourself in that situation where someone's trying to let you go, of some ways to deal with and handling being let go. Marcus?
I'm waiting for Marcus to answer.
No, well, I think the letting go, of, at least for me, is that when you let go in a relationship, that you have to be honest with yourself. And I think for me, I always just have to sever ties, all ties, burn all bridges, and move on. I would rather not be that guy who, has a pretend friendship with you, and we meet every other month for coffee, and you tell me about your husband and how great he's doing and how great he's treating you, and I pretend to listen through gritted teeth and like, oh, that's great, wonderful. I mean, I'd rather wonder about somebody than know about them. I'd rather wonder that they're and be happy for them in the abstract, that I know that they're probably doing okay, than know for certain that they're, with somebody, with children and so forth. Like, I don't want to, it's not that I don't want to be around there for the bad, it's just like, and then maybe this seems like an impish thing to say, but I don't want to be there around there for the good. Like, I can't celebrate with you the same way that we used to celebrate, your promotion at job or at your job, or I can't, spend the kind of quality time that I used to spend with you in the way that I used to spend it with you. So I say letting go is burning everything, all bridges, letting it all go.
I like that idea. I think that you really have to know yourself pretty well to be able to make that decision. If you know that about yourself, that's the best thing for you. That's, of course, what you need to do. Some people can let go and see that they're doing okay, maybe after time, 20, 30 years, and they could have coffee with them, and that would be okay. But when you started talking, Joey, about honesty, and I think one thing that's really, really important is it's important to be honest with people. It's also important to invite honesty. And what I mean by that is to say, and I'll just use a silly example, but does my butt look big in these jeans? Invite honesty. That's usually not a question that ever invites honesty, because nobody wants to go, oh, no, it's huge. God, what are you thinking?
I mean, I don't mind big butts myself.
Okay.
Well,
You know what I mean?
I'm just saying.
Oh, yeah.
Last I
After the show,
checked.
you know what I'm saying? Anyway.
Sorry, Wendy, I got the big butt.
But in a way I don't like. Is it too much? You know, that's the oldest question that people have felt trapped by many, many generations. But you have to invite the honesty. Like, you know, no, really tell me, is this a good color for me? Is this, you know, or something more important? Are you no longer interested? You seem like you're not. If you need to be able to invite honesty, you need to take it in, to accept it, to respect it. You can't expect that other people be honest with you when you put up a barrier to them being honest, or you heckle them when they are, or you punish them when they are. So it's a two-way street. You need to provide the honesty, but you also need to welcome it. And if you're not ready to welcome it, you're not ready to have a relationship. You got an issue. You need to call me. That's what you need.
Well, I'm going to have to call you because I have a hard time hearing what I'm not doing. When I know I'm not doing it, I'm going to just be honest. I only want to hear the good things about myself. I don't really want to hear the bad things. I'm just being honest. I mean, you know, sometimes, tell me the truth. You hear the truth and you're like, maybe I really didn't want to hear that, because it doesn't feel good. And I think that's the toughest thing about, having an honest relationship. Honesty is so important, but you have to get to a point to where you don't take what the person is saying personal. It's not a personal attack on yourself. And I think oftentimes as people, when you hear something you don't like, you take it personal versus, this is helpful, critique. It's not necessarily criticism to hurt your feelings, but I'm just trying to help you become more aware about yourself. And the more and more we try to be aware, the better it is. But the process just sucks. It's a tough process to go through.
It is a tough process to go through because, I talked with an individual a few weeks ago at a conference that I was at. And so she was sharing with me about her wonderful husband. Oh, he's just a wonderful man. And so, I'm like, wow, and I ended up calling her number, and she had given me her home number to the wonderful man. And so, oh, I heard so much about you. And so then later on, she tells me, after we were all roommates at this conference, and she says, yes, my wonderful husband, and, we were all in the same neighborhood, and he was married to this other woman for over 20 years. We were all great friends and everything. I'm like, oh, okay, so they got married later on in life. And she says, yes, and so we're all friends. And I'm like, what are you talking about? So she was friends with the ex-wife because before they were married. And so afterwards, they're all friends. So, that's a hell of a responsible relationship. I don't think I could do that.
No.
I'm not being friends with my friend who was married to my friend. And then now,
It's not a requirement.
No.
Thank God.
No, I think earlier when you were saying about honesty, especially with letting go in a relationship, I know especially guys, since we internalize stuff so much, and we mentally we front a little bit. I remember trying to let someone go once, and wanting to appear that I was fine and fancy free without her, and so this was my much younger days, and you're on the Facebook and you're putting at some club, at the grandiose club, I'm throwing hundreds everywhere, and I'm popping bottles with models, and then
Okay.
and then in reality, you with a 6-pack of PBR, with your pants pulled down in front of your computer at the house, and then you got your boys over here, my boys Terry and Christine, they hitting me up. Oh man, when you at the club when you doing it? And you calling them up, man, no, I'm not at the club. I just put that on there for her. The Dotson ain't rolling tonight, man. So no, I mean, I think it is in honesty. And I think part of that stems from just being honest with yourself that, man, this, as Joey said, this really does just suck. And I do hurt. And it takes, like somebody said, it takes a strong man, it takes a strong person to admit when they're weak and when things do hurt.
Right. Well put, sir. Well put. That man must be a writer. That man must be a writer.
Oh, I keep paying him to say that. By the book.
By the book. Definitely by the book. You know, that just made me think of something. You know, as, like Marcus says, as men, you know, society tells us, be macho, be tough. She broke up with you. Get another girl. It doesn't matter. But the thing that women have to understand, you know, and men have to understand that we need to change that. Men cry. I cry. You know. And it's okay. It's all right to be in touch with your emotions. You know, some women may like it. Some women may not. If she don't like it, well, maybe that's not the one for you. But it's okay to have emotions. It's okay to express how you feel. And I think sometimes we live in a society where, you know, men feel like they can't express themselves. They can't be honest about how they feel. Well, I'm going to disagree with that. You know, I mean, it's okay to be in touch with your feelings. You know, I mean, it's okay to like things that aren't quote unquote masculine. You know, it's all right. Be in touch with your feelings. Be in touch with yourself. That goes from being self-aware. Again, knowing yourself. We keep coming back to that point. Knowing yourself and being okay with you. If don't nobody else love you, you gotta love you.
That's right.
And I'm gonna tell you, I love me so me, baby.
That's all right.
But that's where it starts. It's all self. It ain't we. Self-love, self-respect, self-pride. That has to come from within, somehow, some way. Now, let's, you know, touch on this for a minute, because sometimes we find ourselves in a multitude of situations when we're in relationships. One person in the relationship may have a child, and, you know, remember now, you was googly-eyed and you was lost in the sauce, and you thought this was it for you. And then now you came back, and reality hit, and you're like, mm-mm. But now what do you do that you still have a relationship, you know, with this child, you know? It's hard to break that relationship with that child when you no longer want to be with that person that you were so close with. Let's touch on that, Bridget.
Whew. The maturities and the immature of a breakup when children comes apart. It's really unfortunate because they do suffer the most when it comes down to, oh, I'm no longer in love with your mommy, or I'm no longer in love with your daddy. And then you have the individuals that don't really spend the time with the children. And unfortunately, in this society, it appears that we have become a throwaway society. It doesn't work. Oh, tossing you, I'm not fighting for it, and we're moving on. That's the society that we live in today. Unfortunately, we have a lot of children that need to go into therapy because of that. For those relationships that are just not going to work, you need to consider the children. If it's not going to work, you can co-parent together, not live together, but consider the children.
All right, okay. So, we break up. It's official. I finally got the hint. She don't want me no more. Now, I'm whining, I'm nagging to my boys, you know, and they're listening to me for about a month. And after that, they're saying, all right, man, you need to get it together, okay? She left you, she's moved on. We gotta go out. We gotta do something, because this ain't working. So, you know, let's talk about that, you know, how to cope with when you finally, you know, sever ties and you're feeling emotional. Every song on the radio reminds you of that other person. That was our song. That was our song. We had our first kiss to that song. You know, let's talk about, you know, how you deal with that emotional roller coaster.
Well, I think for me, it you know, I almost had to, because I was moping around so much, talking about this girl. I just call her April, since that's the name of the book. And I remember one day I was having coffee with my friend Kasim, who introduced everybody here, and he was like, "Look, man, Marcus, you know I'm a former Marine." And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "I will sock you dead in your fucking face if I hear her name one more time." and so. And so it kind of, you know, sobers you up to reality in the sense that, this person is not coming back, and the world is moving on, whether you want to march with it or not. And the sun is rising tomorrow, and you can either fall and lay in bed and not shower and not shave and not eat, or you can get up and at least try, even if it's a strain. And I know for me it was for quite some time, but ultimately you have to look at the situation that this is just a moment in time, and moments in time pass, for the better or worse. So.
All right.
I want to hear what Mike has to say.
I've been real quiet.
Oh, yeah. How you doing, man?
I'm all right. I'm awake now. I don't know. I feel like I have not a lot to add for this, just because every relationship I've ever been in has ended, and I'm like, well, hey, see you later. I'm gonna go do whatever the fuck I want all the time. But I don't know. Like, every relationship, there's like an inequity in love, and once you realize that one person loves the other person more, like, honesty has killed every relationship I've ever been in. Because if I was honest all the time, like, none of you would even like me at all. And that goes for any woman that would even try to love me, so. And I don't know, that's the thing, is they say there's someone for everybody, and if I could be honest to a woman all the time and she would still love me, then there's something wrong with her. And that's not even so I don't know. Not to poo-poo on love or anything, man.
Wendy?
I love Mike. Yeah. People get depressed. I mean, you got all those hormones, the chemicals running around in your brain when you fall in love. I mean, I can't think of her name, Dr. Helen Fisher writes all about it. She's an anthropologist. She puts people in functional MRIs and studies them when they're in love and studies them when they break up, and it's amazing the chemical reaction that happens in your body when you're in love, and how long that's sustained is shocking. But when you're dumped, it's a lot easier ride when you're the one cutting them loose. Like, yeah, it's sad, I'll miss you 2 minutes, but goodbye. Yeah, but the person who has goodbye said to them that's where the struggle is, People do get very, very depressed. It is temporary. Rarely, you might see people that think sort of naively, kind of in an immature sort of way, 40 years later, oh, I still love her. Started a movie theater twice, I still love her. She's got grandkids now. That's not the norm. The norm is that you're heartbroken, you don't think you're going to be able to eat, sleep, breathe, function ever again, and guess what? You do. It's just hard to get through. That's why God invented medication. Just kidding.
Right, but just to follow up on what he said, I think you always, in some instances, I think you always have that hangover, even when you've moved on into another relationship and you are happy with someone else. I remember talking to so many people who have been, married for 40 and 50 years, and for the book I was asking them about their first love or their greatest love, and they would, go back into it and of some woman or man who they really love with all their heart, and they, reflexively would just smile, and and they told me, that it's like the pain is gone away, but at the same time, there's this sense of, I don't know, gratitude, I guess, for lack of a better term, that they actually got to love this person, that this person changed them and transformed them somehow. It's kind of like that saying by Elizabeth Gilbert, who I think she wrote Eat, Pray, Love, and she said that a soulmate's not somebody who is meant to come into your life for forever. A soulmate is someone who's meant to come into your life and change up your life, shake it up, and make you so uncontrollable and insane that you have no other recourse but to reflect on your life and who you are as a person. And they prepare you for everything else that comes after that. And I don't know, that's how I kind of view people who I guess aren't in my life anymore. But as I'm grateful to them for for the things that they showed me about myself.
So, through the heartache, through the pain, through the experiences, would you do it all over again? And, you know, this is a question for everyone. As we speak up here, hold on. As we talk up here, you know, these are also questions for everyone in the crowd, you know.
Do it as many times as you possibly can.
I would fall in love again. Yes.
Okay.
I hope to fall in love one day.
Okay.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
You just said you loved me earlier.
I do.
Just throwing that word around up on stage.
I got a lot of love to give, is what I'm saying.
Marcus,
In a heartbeat, yeah.
the power of love. Through heartbreak, the power of love. Even though that there's been heartbreak, you would still do it again. Now that's one hell of a drug. No, I'm being honest with you. That's one hell of a drug. I ain't hit rock bottom, but I'll hit rock bottom again if I had a shot at love.
And do it again.
And do it again and do it again. Now that's a powerful thing. Now just think about that. You was down and out, sad for months, didn't want to talk to nobody, had on the same clothes for a week straight, didn't even move, watching reruns, reminiscing, and you would do it again. That's a powerful thing.
It is. Why do you think that there's so many records sold about love? Let's do it again.
Before there was an alphabet, there were human beings scratching pictures of love gained and lost on the inside of caves, you know. People have been doing this since there have been people. There may be some debate about how long that is. I'm not here to debate that.
This is what I would like to leave everybody in the crowd with. You know, just some of my thoughts through my experiences, you know, on my short time on this earth. Women, you have the power to change everything. You have the power to change this whole game that we call dating. I'll be honest with you. Most dudes, and I'm guilty of it, we're gonna trick you to think you don't have the power because we wanna have the upper hand, because we wanna feel like we run stuff. But at the end of the day, it begins and ends with you. Think about it. For all the moms in here, and even for the dads in here, where did you learn how to love? You typically learn from your mother, your first love. Where do you learn compassion, empathy? Where do you learn those things? Typically from your mom. But in the same token, women, you're the reason why the dating game is the way it is now. Now, hear me out now. Because if a dude thought he could come out in some holy sweats and a beat-up T-shirt and some
Mike.
holy shoes and still get a date, guess what? We would do it. Because that's what we want to do.
That's Mike all day, though.
The reason why...
This is my only pair of jeans that doesn't have a hole right now.
You got to put it on the table for him, Mike. You know, sometimes you got to put it on the table.
I had to check just to see, make sure.
Hey, you got to put it on the table for him. You know, but the reason why guys get dressed, look good, buy nice cars, get nice homes, wear fancy clothes is for women. Because women like it. And if you like it, then we're going to do everything we can to do what you like because we like you. So at the essence of it, you know, once we can get away and put away from the material, the shallowness, and the way that we separate people as far as, you know, what shoes they may have on or what clothes they have on, as soon as we can get past that, as far as women goes, the whole dating thing is going to change because then you can get to the substance of a person. You know, don't chase the car. Don't chase the clothes. Chase the essence of a man. But before you chase that, chase self-love. Chase self-worth. Because if you ain't got that, guess what? You might get the dude with the car, but you ain't going to get the position you want. You might take a trip or two. We might even go to Neiman Marcus. Never know. But you're not going to be there when it's all said and done. Because at the end of the day, if we can take you shopping, you know, take a trip, and you're smiling and dialing, then now we know what type of woman we have.
it's the essence, it's the core, is what makes or breaks the person. And I just think we got to get back to basics, get away from the material. And I know it's tough because we live in a world that tells us it's all about the material. It's all about the big house, white picket fence, fancy car. What is it, 2.3 kids? I don't even know if it's that anymore. It keeps changing. But let's get back to you. Let's get back to loving ourselves, women, because everything begins and ends with you. And once we can correct that and fix that, we're going to change this whole thing called dating. So that's the one thing that I want to leave with you, that's been on my heart for quite some time, getting back to basics, self-worth, self-love, and don't forget, self-esteem. Bridget?
Women, you know you have the power. Be respectful of that. Don't go out beating them upside their heads and hurting the men. Just know what you want and don't accept anything less.
Oh, now it's my turn. How do I follow up all this? I think with people in relationships that, especially a long-term relationship, a bonded pairing, we'll call it, because that sounds really clinical. That power and influence shifts in relationships, that the person with the least interest always has the most control, but that usually changes. One person is usually a little bit more invested than the other one, and it balances back and forth. But I like the idea that, I think that's important to understand, that there's shift and there's change in relationships, and that's okay. And honesty is really important. Integrity is really important. And it's okay to expect those. You should expect those, but you should also invite them.
Mike?
Don't do it. Marcus?
Tough act to follow right there. No, for me, I remember, I'm not a person who likes to speak in front of people. I'm very introverted, and which is why I'm a writer, because I don't. But and so I wanted to write something or present something that, for me, it allowed me to understand, or at least to come to some sort of conclusion of what I thought, love is and what it means. And for me, I think it changed my perspective entirely. That I don't think love is a destination or an end point for something. I think love is an experience. In the same breath that an experience, like, if you think of the happiest day of your life, and you're thinking just the thought of it makes you smile, or you think about the best meal that you've ever had in your life, where you can smell the aroma and your mouth starts to water right now just thinking of it, or you think of the time that you traveled to the best place that you ever went to, and when you set foot down on it, you thought it was heaven on earth. And the thing about it is, what those experiences have in common is that they're all finite. They could possibly end one day, and usually do. But the fact that they are finite, it doesn't diminish them in any way. It doesn't diminish their impact on our life. It doesn't change the fact that those are things that we view as precious to our life, that we view as something to treasure and to cherish in our life. And I think, at least from what I've learned, is that if we view love in that way, that we cherish the person that we're in love with and we treasure the time that we have with them, whatever it is, whatever that duration, whether it's like me, you're going home to a bottle of Jack Daniels tonight, or no, or you're in a situation where you have a relationship that's like a Roman candle and it burns brightly and intensely and then fizzles out quickly, or you have something that it lingers for quite some time, or you have one where hopefully that ends in wedded bliss for the rest of your life. To me, it doesn't matter. The fact that you are able to cherish that experience, to cherish that person you are with, I think that's the most important thing. And I think that if we did more of that, does that lead to enduring happiness? I don't know. But what I do know it leads to is that you being able to say that I loved and I was loved without any regrets whatsoever. And in this life, that, to be honest with you, is that there's nothing that's guaranteed, and nothing at all that is absolute. And to be honest, it probably is up to chance a lot more than we care to admit. To be able to say that, what more can you ask of love? What more can you ask of life? And what more can you ask of yourself? So that's my 2 cents.
Great. Well,
So anyway, we're going to now open it up to questions. So of any of the panelists here. So if you question and comment, so if you please just stand by or line up here at the mics, and we'll do our best to answer them. So
feel free now. Don't be bashful.
Hi, my question is for Mike. I'm wondering if you figured out this is a very elaborate intervention simply for you.
They haven't worked yet. You guys can try.
I don't know if anybody's read A Year Without April yet. Show of hands, anybody have a copy of it? Anybody read it? Okay, there's a part in there where Miles stakes out the bookstore for like a week. He's out there for a while. What was going through his head when that happened?
what's going through Miles' head, the character?
Through Miles' head. I was real curious about that when I read it.
What kind of crazy shit's going on there?
I think it's when you're in the heat of something, whatever it is, and you can rationalize anything. You think that you're thinking that this is worth doing, or I don't care if I've called this person 6,000 times, or I showed up unannounced at her accidentally on purpose at something she was going to be at. I think when you're in love, everything just sounds. You have this, or I should say, obsessed. When you're obsessed, you have this, tunnel vision, this extremely narrow focus of, I just want to be with this person, hell or high water, and it's usually hell that you're going through. So.
I was glad to hear Marcus and Wendy talk a little bit about process. And I didn't have so much a question, but forgive me, it was sort of a comment/criticism on something that you said, Marcus, that was we all want a custom fit in a off-the-shelf world. And I've had a similar metaphor, but I still think it just kind of commodifies people and sees people as too static, like a set of traits and these characteristics that we're still shopping for, to think it's fixed, it's ready-made, and I can just take it off the shelf. So I was just wondering if you could emphasize more about the process that more recently you brought up, and I really liked the being able to accept it for whatever it is, however long, whatever the intensity was, giving it what you've got and being able to cherish that person and the experience. So hooray for ending like that.
I don't know how much I could add to that, I guess. I don't know. I just think that, ultimately, what I've learned is what I think I said earlier, is that ultimately to be able to accept someone for who they are, for what they are, for warts and all, and having the maturity to know that somebody isn't going to be perfect, because perfect doesn't exist, but somebody can be perfect for you. And I think it's, coming to that understanding that it's sort of a mature type love, that that things might not be, how you envision them. They could be better, they could be worse, but you step out there and live life in love. Yeah, I don't know.
So I am the baby of my family, the youngest of 3 children, very, very spoiled. So I went through several relationships feeling like, oh, you need to spoil me. And one of you said that you should never settle. And maybe maybe it wasn't settling that I did, but I know that when it came to my husband, I had to turn off that spoil button. And I thought I was settling at the time, but I think it was just not being spoiled anymore, because he wouldn't say he loved me. He was at my house every day. He was always around my family, knew most of my friends, loved my nieces and nephews, was just a great guy, But he didn't say he loved me, and he needed to say that, or we were going to break up. So for 4 weeks, I walked around I told him it was over. You're not going to say you love me, it's over. So I walked around with the lip dragging and looking all pitiful. My mother said, I'm so tired of looking at you. If you don't call that man and tell him that it's back on, and just wait for him to say, I love you when he's ready. So how do you view turning off that spoiled button versus settling?
Well,
that for who?
you knew you was spoiled.
Shut up, Bridget. Shut up, Bridget.
Being a little brat.
Whatever.
See, that's when them women say, you know, they gonna treat me like this, and if they don't do this like this, then I ain't gonna. But they really, really love them, but they want them to say it first. But it doesn't always happen like that. You gotta let the man mature and let him move into the bling bling. Let him move into it. He's coming. You had the nice fish on the hook. Yeah, you got him.
Well, it sounds like too, well, we don't like it when people set limits with us when we're not used to those limits. But the only people that really care about us do set limits with us. The people that love us do. And he did love you. He wasn't saying it, but maybe his limit was, I'll say it when I want to say it. And good for him. But he was, as you beautifully described, he was behaving very lovingly. You know, I always tell people when, you know, whether they're friends or they're clients and they're talking about a relationship, should I stay? Is this going to work? And you know, he says this or she says this and these things happen, and it's, after a while, you need to hit the mute button in a relationship and just watch the behavior. His behavior, you needed to hit your own mute button. His behavior was impeccable. Very loving, yeah. Sometimes you got to hit that mute button and just watch. And then believe what you see. So, good for him and good for you.
I said something. My boy asked me. I don't really have too much questions because you guys touched on a lot of stuff. I just thought I'd add something because there was a couple things you guys had said, and I don't know how many of you guys have like children with other people that you guys might not be together with or anything like that. But I know I'm in that experience. I've had that, and it kind of goes hand in hand with the other thing of like letting go, because I know that me and my daughter's mom, we had a really tough breakup in the beginning, but I mean we're good friends now, and I think the biggest part of that was like I think because we were living together. So I think the best way to really get over somebody in that situation is to not be around them. You know what I mean? And it's like, because you said something about burning bridges. Like I don't think you always have to burn a bridge. I think in a bad situation, you definitely should. Like a violent situation, you should definitely get rid of that. But I know that we're still good. Like I saw her yesterday. You know, we're good friends, and I think the whole thing was not being around them. You can't move on from somebody if you're still there. You know, so no contact and all that kind of stuff, and just kind of giving it time to like really, I mean, I just went and started dating a whole bunch of people and things like that. And I mean, it really just helped, just to, whatever it is, to get it out of your system, get that person out of your system. And, you know, and now, you know, we still have a kid, and, you know, obviously you guys get together and there's something there that you like about somebody. And so if you have a kid together and you guys have a good relationship, you can still work that out without burning a bridge. So I just thought I'd add that to the thing.
Well, good for you for having a good relationship with the other parent of your child. That's hard for a lot of people. People think too that if they're you know, the opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is indifference. And in a sense, I think the place you have to get when you're in that kind of a situation where you have a child together, and it's so tough to parent and to be civil, because, you know, who has a really nice divorce or breakup? You dirty son of a, you know, some of us do, but, you know, a lot of folks don't. But it's when you can get to that place where you're more indifferent about them, you know, it's an easier place to parent, because you're not invested, there aren't any strings, they've been dissolved, cut, whatever. But it's difficult to do. It's a whole added layer of other layers of other things when you have kids that you have to continue co-parenting. So good for you.
Right. I'm very pro-choice, so I never had that situation with it. But yeah.
I think you just lost about 300 sales.
I like that joke.
At least Mike laughed at it.
When Joey was talking about passion comes from the female, when Marcus was going through his problems,
Dang, Dad.
I remember, yeah.
You did talk about him on the crapper.
I remember I was talking to Cynthia, and I was like, what's wrong with him? And she says, well, he's broken up with this girl. I'm like, he's broken up with a girl, and he's moping around like that? I said, they've been in that room is bad. You know, it smells in there. And I was talking to one of my best friends, and he says, what you need to do is go in there and tell him he needs to get back on your side of the genes, just get off that and just move on. He said, because you never wasted time. You always went from one girl to the other. And I said, that was true. I mean, I had hardly time to experience breakup. I said, but I always told him also that matters of the heart, you got to deal with on your own because you'll figure it out yourself. I can give you all the advice in the world, but you're not going to listen. So I always told his mom, I said, well, he'll get over it eventually, hopefully by the time the room starts deteriorating from the house. I hope. But passion comes from not just the mom. Men, we always have this thing we're just, we're fearless, we whatever. But the most passionate person I've ever met or been associated with was my father. And he's passed that on to me, and apparently Marcus got a little bit of me and Cynthia, because he has a whole lot of passion. And I'm like, whoa, okay, you got to turn down just a little.
Well, you gonna actually ask a question?
Question I was going to ask you was, or the panel is, my question is that I don't really have a question. It's just that
obviously.
I want another story.
When you're, I learned one thing, and I learned this from my grandfather, and he was married to grandma for a long, long time. And my dad said, when you're in a relationship with somebody, before you can even think about you love this person, you actually really have to like them first, And I met Cynthia a long, long time ago, and I liked her. We liked each other, okay? I mean, and it was kind of mutual. She had some things that I was wrong with me that I needed to change, because I was used to women spoiling me. And she told me that, I'm sorry, but you got the wrong woman. I don't do that. And so as time went on, I knew I wanted to be with this person. I didn't had a lot of relationships before then, and I knew I wanted to be with this person because I wanted to be with her because it was hurting. I mean, we were apart a little while, and I just knew I wanted to be with her. And I called her up one day, and I said, I'm in town. I got 30 days. We're going to get married. We got 30 days. You got 30 days to decide whether we're going to get married or not. And she says, I think about it. And I'm like, okay. And I said, okay, if we're not married in 30 days, I'm leaving, going back to Hawaii. I'm not calling you. I'm not writing you. It's just done. She waited until the 29th day. I was in limbo. I was in fear. Oh, I just told her this, that, what am I going to do? Oh, my God. So we got married. We got married on the 30th day. We were married and been, 39? Yeah, 39 years. And in a token, love goes on forever because each day I love her more than I did the first day. And
is this being videotaped?
Yeah. But what I'm saying is that your heart hurts, and you rebound and you get over. and you find love again. I'm hoping that nothing ever happened to Cynthia because I probably won't find a love like that again. You know, I can love, but never like that. And your heartbreak that you've gone through, you have moved on. It took you a while, but you have moved on. It encouraged you to write this book. That was good, you know. And I read your book, and I'm like, oh my God, I didn't realize he was that bad. You know.
I'm just gonna sneak off stage. You done got me back, Dad. You.
They got for the bathroom thing, you know. So, other than that, you know, you have to learn to love, you have to learn to like a person, and you have to experience passion. Passion comes everywhere, you know.
And this conversation would have been so much better at the house, which is. Thank you.
Just briefly for me, first of all, Mike, when I grow up, I want to be like you.
How old do you think I am, man?
I had 22 years of it. 22 years of it, and it crashed and bombed. And I have a question that I want an answer to, if I can get it. It's for you, Wendy. How do you get over the bitterness of having nothing to show for 22 years of marriage except a shitload of debt? And the thought and the knowledge that, you know, our women have half the money and all the pussy, and I never got my fair share.
I want to know this.
Hey, good luck with that shit.
Unfortunately,
No
time
pressure.
has run out this evening. Did you think the pussy was on hold or ice or you get one lip, she gets the other one? What is nothing to show for it? I think well, okay, yeah, and we'll put it on YouTube, what I answered. If you've got nothing to show for 22 years, I think you've got, well, that's going to be a part of it. We all feel a little bitter when things go bad. But in 22 years' time, you and I had a chance to talk a little bit before this panel started, and you can't convince me that in 22 years, that charm came from somewhere. Now, she may have been the thing that helped you hone your skills, or she may have been the rough edge that you smoothed out over. You're feeling a little rough now, but 22 years, I don't know, you got to be a developmentally disabled monkey to not learn something in 22 years. You've learned a lot in 22 years. Now you give yourself more credit than that. We just got to work on that anatomy thing for you. I'm trying to be gentle.
You should have gone to college. You could have had a lot of debt and all the pussy.
Earlier, we talked about the power of the vagina and the power of the penis. I mean, really. A man and woman thing.
Oh, please ask another question.
I'm already hot, and I'm not hot and bothered in that kind of way. It's just so much going on. There's so much information. I'm trying to process it. I'm pretty passionate about my responses, but can't cover all of them. There was one that Joey hit on that kind of just made me want to punch somebody.
Joey can handle it. Come on, Joey.
It's this whole Jedi mind trick thing that you guys do, making us think like we have the power. If I had the power, I would have 5 husbands right now. And I would be enjoying every aspect of what that man had to bring me. But I think because it's a partnership and 2 people have to agree on how they're going to spend their future together, the hole in the pants. If I don't want to date you because you have a hole in a pair, you're just going to go find the chick that has the low standards, that doesn't care about the hole in your jeans. And then I'm still left over here going, hi, I'm still single.
Okay, well, let's back up, because that felt like a 2-part, 3-part, 4-part question. So I want to try to cover everything that, no, but I just want to I want to attempt to answer everything you said, and if I stray, bring me back home. Now, what I was saying about the power in dating, guys, often try to use the Jedi mind trick of trying to take the power from you. Now, when I was talking about the power, everything to me, this is just my personal belief. Everything begins and ends with a woman. That's just how I feel. That's where my passion is at. I was raised, with my mother and my father. The things I learned from my mother were different from the things that I learned from my father. But as I've dated and I've seen others date, and don't necessarily want to generalize everybody, but if we deal with it in a general sense, that's what guys try to do. We want you to think you need me. We want you to think your life won't be better unless you have me in your life, and that's not true. That guy who's going to go get the woman that accepts him with his holes in his jeans, that just means he wasn't right for you. That's your standard. Now, the cross between lowering your standards and having standards, it's like every other relationship, is give and take. We stated how no one person's going to have everything that you want, but you got to figure out what's the most important thing to you. Now, if I have 80% of the qualities that you want in a man and I have 20% that don't, what's the 80-20 rule? Are you going to leave me for 20%? Are you going to leave me for the 20% I don't have, or are we going to work together to get maybe another 15 or 10 out of me? I mean, where do you know that 90% is not passing? I mean, 80% is pretty good, but 90, you're putting in work. So that's what I was, commenting on, and I just believe in the whole dating thing, standards. There's nothing wrong with standards, and there's nothing wrong with wanting the world, and you deserve the world. But I think sometimes men are guilty of this too. What you're requiring and sometimes what you're asking for is not really maybe realistic for the individual. I hate to say it, but my dad would always say this too: son, you can't want champagne on a beer budget. You go to the bar, you want champagne, you really should be drinking beer. So it's really about being self-aware. And if you want 5 husbands, if that's what you want, there's places in the world where you can go and get 5 husbands. Now, you can't get in you can't get in the States, but you can go somewhere and get what you want.
There's a tribe in Africa, I already researched.
See? So if that's what your heart desires for and that's what you burn for, then, hey, shoot for the moon. If you miss, you're still amongst the stars. But
preach it.
Yeah. True. Come on now. I know there's more questions out there. Here we go.
I'm going through a divorce now, and I'm on my 3rd marriage. And I'm one of these guys with the 1st and 3rd wife. Just fell head over heels in love. Oh, it's the most amazing, powerful, intoxicating drug. You're right about that. My 1st wife, though, after about 5.5 years, she runs off with another man. I was in my early 20s, and that just tore me up. My heart just turned to stone, and I carried this armor around me for like 24 years. I cried so damn much, I couldn't even cry anymore. Just dried all up. And then 24 years after she left me, we connect. She's back on the East Coast, and she apologizes. And I just feel all these slabs of armor just dropping off. I didn't even know how much shit I was still carrying around because I was still holding on to that pain. And I worked through it. The 2nd marriage was just friendship. We kind of grew together. We were together 18 years, and we drifted apart, and we're still friends. We got 2 daughters. We co-parent. We're good friends. My 3rd marriage, head over heels in love. She was the one. And we went from broke to rich, then lost everything. And house burned down, all this stuff. And like bam, 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 bam. the marriage unraveled. And she asked me to move out. I said no. Finally, I agreed to move out. We thought it temporary. But in the separation was the best thing I ever did. And I've discovered myself. Goes back to what you were saying, Joy, about self-love. And both of us realized that, wow, we had just given ourselves, we just surrendered, gave up ourselves to try to please the other person. We gave up so much of our power to try to make this thing work. And yes, my wife was the most intoxicating, powerful, she truly is an extraordinary goddess. And damn it, for whatever reason, she decides, you know what, she's done. She just doesn't love me anymore romantically. She doesn't want to do the work with therapists anymore. She's done. And I cried and all that, but I realized, wow, I got the gift in that was I discovered myself. And I have forgotten what self-love was. I spent so much time just trying to bend over backwards. And the more I bent over backwards, the more she hated that behavior. And so I realized I had to let go of her. I would be the one on the floor hanging on to her ankle, saying, no, no. I mean, God, she was the most incredible lover I've ever been with. And at the same time, God. At the same time, I realized I had to not just let go of her, I had to let go of myself. And what do I mean? I had to let go of the image I created. Talk about being honest and being authentic. I was like wrap myself up in a lie that I came to believe in about myself that wasn't even true. I had to unravel, like a mummy coming out of the wrapping, except it wasn't mummified, more like a butterfly thing. But I just had to discover, wow, I'm me. I got some nasty shit in me. But if I'm gonna love myself, I gotta embrace that nasty shit in me. So it's a journey. And if I would do it all over again, hell yeah. I'm not going to say, if I'm 53 right now, I'm not going to say, hell no, I'm not ever going to get married again. Yeah, those thoughts hit my mind, but the right one comes along, however long it lasts, but I've learned to be in the moment. Just take it as it comes. Don't put expectations on it. Don't act like society wants me to act. Be me. If you want to be with me, this is me. Same thing, take it or leave it. But here, I'm me. I'm not going to try to be some whatever anymore. I got to be me. And if a woman loves it, great. If you don't, fine. There's plenty of fish, 7 billion of us. I'm done, but thank you. All right, thank you.
So, sounds like he took off that love mask.
There we go.
He took it off.
Now, I just want to touch on just one more thing that the young lady said. It just hit me. Okay. I kind of feel like this. In relationships, the only things that can really happen, besides the god-awful things, the only things that can really happen in a relationship are the things you allow to happen, the things you put up with. If you're willing to put up with it, then they're going to do it. Because I'm not going to say everyone, but people in relationships have a tendency to push the envelope. How far can I go? I'm going to push it a little bit more. But a couple gentlemen said in here, and I believe, Marcus' father even said it, that he knew he had something with his wife when she put her foot down. And she was like, no, I'm not me. I'm not doing X, Y, and Z. And he knew right there he had a strong woman. And for a strong man, that is attractive. And even when I speak on my own, situations, when I found the right person for me, she wasn't putting up with my BS. She said, no, you can't have me and have others. If you're going to have me, you're going to have me. And I was like, ooh, I like that. So, I was like, ooh, okay, strong, say that, okay. But, so again, it goes back to the power. If you continuously, male or female, allow them to push the envelope, then they're going to keep pushing. But if you push back and say, I demand this respect, you will treat me this way. And, I'm not saying he got to take you shopping every Friday, but if you demand respect, you will get respect. But in order to get respect, you got to show self-respect. You got to show self-love. And so, you know, that's what I was pertaining to. That's what, you know, I was talking about, how it begins and ends with a woman. You know, there's no one cure-all for everything. You know, there's not one perfect fit shoe, one perfect fit stiletto. It doesn't work that way. But in the end of the day, if you won't allow him to treat you that way, guess what? He won't. So.
All right, we're going to wrap it up with one more question.
Okay.
Gentlemen here.
First of all, thank you for what you're doing for breast cancer survivors. My baby sister went through treatment all last year, and so went through that with the family, and just thank you for that. Appreciate it. So, question, Wendy, and Marcus too, or anybody, what is chemistry and how important is it in a relationship?
Oh, good. I like that. Okay, I'm going to recommend a book because this is a great book. It's called Why We Love, and it's by Dr. Helen Fisher. I mentioned her earlier. She's an anthropologist. And she studies this very thing about why we love, what is love, all the chemicals rushing around in love, why we love. And chemistry, if you talk to different people who've had successful long-term relationships, long-term pair bonding, we like to call them. Some people have that, oh, it was love at first sight. I always love those stories. I've never had that, but I always love those stories. And for some people, that they do have that experience. However, for other people, it could be somebody who was a friend. Joey was kind of talking about somebody that's a friend, and then it turns into something else. Chemistry happens over time. Some people, you see them in a room and there's something about them. Well, what we do understand is that sometimes we are sensitive to scent. It's not a conscious thing. Sometimes it is. We tend to be drawn to people with similar backgrounds, whether it's socioeconomic, it's cultural, things like that. They're doing lots of studies about scent, and we are finding that, what I might really flip my skirt makes Bridget want to throw up, that we're all very different. We all have personal chemistries, and sometimes we find somebody whose chemistry we really, really like, their own aroma. I think chemistry is really, really helpful to keep us engaged and interested. And when we don't have that, when things are rough, we don't have that kind of, why do I want to say French tickler in the back of our mind? Sorry, my mind is wandering. Chemistry is really important. However, it doesn't typically last much longer. That intensity in a relationship doesn't last much longer than 12 to 18 months for most people. And then you have more of a settling in, and people get really worried when that happens. Like, remember we used to have sex all the time, and we used to do this, and we used to stay up and we used to talk, and people get worried. That's normal. That's normal. If you expect that to last for 10, 20 years, you're going to be sorely disappointed. But to have no chemistry with someone at all, if you can accept that up front and understand that's not a part of this, but we have all these other great things, and you can commit to that, well, good for you. But most people find that there's not something at some point, especially even if you're past that in your relationship, but it's something that you can pleasantly reflect upon and sort of giggle about. Like, remember how, we were like naked 12 times a day? Remember those days? Okay, maybe not 12, okay? Maybe 11. But it's really, really important. If you never have any kind of chemistry with someone, then it's still possible. There are arranged marriages. A lot of them report to have some chemistry later on. But you're kind of setting yourself up for a little bit of disappointment if you expect that somehow it will magically occur when you've never found that it was there. So I don't know that answers your question, but it's different. Expectations are different for different people, too.
Then one more, yeah.
I find that works for me. I tried, I've been married quite a few times, and the few times that I did marry, I had premarital sex before marriage. And I found out that the premarital sex ruined the marriage because of the fact that I built my relationship on a shaky and a false foundation. And I find when we do premarital sex, it's like building your house on the sand. As soon as the wind, the rain, and all the trouble of marriage, that house gonna come down. But I found that this marriage that I'm in now, I had got to the place, I've been in a 15-year marriage and I came out of it. I was mean, I was resentful, I didn't want no woman, I didn't want no dog, I didn't want no cat, I didn't want no another man, I didn't want nobody. I just wanted to be left alone because I had enough. I was up here with it until one day I met my wife here in Walmart. Would you stand up, baby? I met her in Walmart, and it was literally like God brought this girl to me and presented her to me. And I began to, some of y'all may not agree with me, that's fine too. I began to research the presenting, the presentation. God presented Eve to Adam. And so the same way that he brought her to Adam is the same way that God brought this woman to me. And we've been married about, a little over 3 years now. And we haven't had an argument, not one. And I'm 15 years her age. She can be my daughter, more or less. And what I'm saying, no, I'm serious. I'm being serious. I'm pouring my heart out to let us know that we can make it. If we do it the way that God had laid it out for us to do, we wouldn't have no problem. And then I really feel like this here. I really do feel like this. Marriage is for grown people. If you're going to still be a child and you need not to get married, male or female, it's time to stand up and take responsibility as a man and do what you're supposed to do. My wife doesn't want for anything. Her every need, I supply her of every need. Why? Because I'm the provider for her. I blessed her with 2 hummus, not one, an H3 and an H2, a red one and a white one. 3 months in the marriage. This is how incredible this woman was, because this is the gift that God gave me. And I want to tell God how much I appreciate him by doing what I did. And I'm going to say this last thing. It's not a day go by that I don't tell God, thank you for bringing her into my life, because I never thought I could love again.
Right on. Amen. All right, folks, if we can give our panelists a huge round of applause, that'd be fantastic. And then give yourselves a round of applause on top of that. If there's anything else anybody wants to say in super final closing, then feel free. But that was amazing. I thought that was awesome.
I want to lead off by saying I have to pee real bad, so if everyone keep it real short.
Speaking of Mike and peeing, Prim Awesome is Mike's Twitter handle, and you should definitely follow this guy on there because he's ridiculous, as you've witnessed.
I'm very funny.
A Year Without April. Tax deductible, I got it that time. Tax deductible donations to Sierra Sisters right over here, and more information. I appreciate it, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.